Okay, I'm Christine Eck, and I'm here interviewing the beautiful Ashlee Wilkin, who's snuggling with her baby boy Cedar. And Ashlee is in her sacred window now, and she has had a really beautiful birth and postpartum story. And I'm so happy that you are willing to let me interview you, Ashlee. Thank you so much.
Oh, I'm happy to be interviewed by you, Christine.
Awesome. So I'm just going to ask you some questions. And the first one I have is, you are a practicing Ayurvedic postpartum doula. You've had tons of experience already working with lots of new moms in various situations. You're a massage therapist, an Ayurvedic practitioner, birth and postpartum doula. How do you feel like all of this background experience has informed your preparation for your own postpartum sacred window?
It's a great question. Well, I'll start by first saying that for my birth, because of the experience that I've had working with moms in the birth field, like it started there, like in planning for my birth, the concepts and the ideas that I had in my mind were really informed by my previous experiences. And due to a couple different circumstances, I ended up having to have a hospital birth instead of a home birth, and it led to a cesarean. And I had packed this, I had basically like 5 different bags that I packed into my car with my husband, with all of the things that I wanted to have in preparation for both being at the hospital, but also for the immediate postpartum. And so one of the bags that I had was full of like different food things, and I had like a jar of prunes and cloves and a jar of ghee, and I had some teas, I had dashmul and panchacola. And so I had like some of the basic food stuffs that I felt like I would need based on the experiences that I've had working with moms. But I also had things that would make the hospital room sacred for me, to make it feel more like home. So I brought Tibetan prayer flags, and I brought these blessings that women had given me for my blessing way. And I brought twinkle lights, Christmas lights, and basically I just created the environment that I wanted to make myself feel like I had like sacredness, even though I was in a hospital setting. And then postpartum, I had set up 10 days with a Ayurvedic postpartum doula, my dear friend Tana, for when I got done being at the hospital. And I also set up a 7 sisters program. So I have 7 different women that stop by for an hour or 2 or 3 hours a day, and they check in and they help out with household chores, and just kind of also allow me to have some time with adults. And if I need to take a shower, or if I need to have a snack, or I need my water filled, like that's part of what the 7 sisters do for me. And then I also had a couple of friends who came and stayed with me for 3 days, and they cooked breakfast and lunch and dinner for me, and helped out with laundry, and helped out with cleaning the kitchen and taking care of all the little details. So basically I'm almost at 4 weeks into my sacred window at this point in time, and I have basically had at least one person stop by every single day since Cedar was born to help out and lend a hand, which has been pretty amazing, in addition to having my husband here. So yeah, it's all of my previous experience has really led into this incredibly supported experience that I've had in this sacred window, and also throughout my birth.
That's so great. Can you talk to me a little bit about sort of like the mental shift you had to make? You were expecting to, or planning to, birth at home, and you obviously like had to make a mental switch kind of in the moment. And talk a little bit about how, like, your process and sort of embracing the situation in the moment and making it as beautiful as it ended up being for you.
Yeah, well, so I had the beginning markers of preeclampsia starting at week 37. My blood pressure started to rise. So I actually had a couple of weeks prior to actually being full term where I began processing the likelihood of not having a home birth.
Okay.
Um, and I had moments where I cried and moments where I was like, I'm gonna have a cesarean, and that was ultimately kind of my biggest fear. But throughout the process of my induction, which is what ended up happening for me, I basically just had moments where I would break down, and then just allowing myself to have those breakdowns would also allow me to kind of step into the next phase of what needed to happen. And so I don't know if I have a really specific process exactly, but just for me, understanding kind of the medical necessity of my birth going the way that my birth was going um, allowed me to surrender into the experience. And it was a perpetual process of surrender, because each step of the way there was like one more thing, like one more intervention that was not in my birth plan, obviously, because I was planning to have a home birth. But I think because I had created this sacred environment around me for my actual like being in the hospital time, and had all the support people that I needed, um, it's almost like layers of peeling back an onion, where I had my ideal vision and I like wrote that down before I like at week 38 or 39, I wrote down like, this, if this could happen at home, this would be like the most amazing experience, and this is what my husband would be like, and this is what my midwives would be like, and this is what it would feel like and look like. And then with each step of the way, I just tried to bring in as much sacredness for me as I could. Yeah, I don't know if that really exactly answers the question, but it was a perpetual process of surrendering and letting go of like an ideal, and then acknowledging what was ahead of me, and then just sort of being open to that.
It also sounds like you really allowed yourself to experience the sadness that came along with it, and just let yourself be in it and feel it, and
Mm-hmm.
coming through that and into the other side of it kind of helped you into a more peaceful place about it.
Totally. Yeah, definitely. And I think because I started kind of mourning what I wasn't going to have at like week 37, and I didn't have him until week 41, I had ample time to like process that it wasn't an abrupt, like traumatic experience. And then my induction, my birth story spans 4 days. And so there was ample time also throughout that process for me to process. And I had my journal with me, my pregnancy journal, and I also had brought like watercolors in with me to the hospital. And so at one point in time, like one early morning, I think it was like morning 2 of the 4 days, my husband and I each did a little watercolor picture painting. And for me, what mine was like a river, and it was all about like letting go, allowing like golden light and the experience to wash over me, both like the physical experience, but also like the spiritual and energetic experience, to go with the flow instead of trying to fight it. So that was definitely part of it too.
Oh, that's beautiful, Ashlee.
Yeah,
Beautiful.
thank you.
So it also sounds like I have your picture down in the corner, and it's like messing up. So I'm gonna like try to like look up at the camera so it looks like I'm looking at you. It also sounds like that you had a lot of preparation in terms of people lined up to help you, and I'm wondering how it was, because for so many people it can be very challenging to ask for help. Even those of us who know how important it is during postpartum to actually reach out and let themselves be taken care of. And I wonder if you could talk a little bit about how it felt for you and how people responded in your community in terms of being lined up ahead of time to come in and help you in the ways that they did.
Yeah, I mean, I feel so incredibly blessed. Partly it's because of the work that I have done in my community. And so a number of the 7 sisters and a number of the people that came to my Blessing Way and that are delivering meals now through Meal Train are women that I've worked with as either their labor doula or their postpartum doula. And so it was actually pretty amazing how many people wanted to support and help out. I think my little guy has some gas. I'm gonna move him really quick. So he's a talker. So for the 7 sisters, I'm also working in my community to try to bring that kind of a model into our community with our local childbirth and parenting resource center. And so it's actually a perfect opportunity. We've had a number of moms we've worked with to build this like concept up around them, but we've had a lot of stumbling blocks in our community. Part of it's like we have a rural community, and so like the access of women being able to meet up with these moms who live far away is like more challenging. Mm-hmm. And so myself and the director and founder of the Nest, which is our local childbirth and parenting resource center, we were like, well, this is this beautiful and perfect opportunity to implement the 7 Sisters program for me, and then kind of work out some of the kinks if we can. Mm-hmm. And so what I did basically is I had a number of people who just volunteered to be one of my 7 sisters. And then a number of people that, like, in my mind, I was thinking, like, these are the kind of women that I would want to have, like the wisdom keeper women that I would want to have around me during my sacred window of postpartum. And so I basically met up with each of the women that were interested and talked to them about what the 7 Sisters program is and what it would look like, and then asked if they would be one of my 7 sisters, sort of like asking them on a date. And all of the women were just so thrilled to be able to provide that kind of a gift to me, which was really amazing. And then I also set up like a dinner where I invited all of them over and kind of showed them where I had stuff and showed them my list of things that would be helpful for them to do postpartum for me. And then also just helped, like, facilitated them meeting each other so that they could have communication open amongst each other. And what else? For my Blessing Way, the women that organized my Blessing Way, they organized the meal train as well. And so that was something that didn't have to ask people to do. They sent emails out and were like, hey, if you guys are interested, like, here's the meal train link and you can sign up here and here's all the information. And so I think having somebody, a facilitator to facilitate your 7 Sisters program, which one of my friend Katie is the facilitator for my 7 Sisters. And so she's actually fielding the people's questions and also like checking in and making sure that they're going to show up on the days they said they're going to show up on and all that stuff. And then having somebody else that was in charge of like the meal train stuff has been really helpful because it takes that pressure off of me. Because what I find is, even though I'm here and like my 7 sisters come over, some of them like will just like look at the list and they'll start doing things, and other ones will ask like, what should I do? And then I feel guilty about like having them do things, which seems silly. So yeah.
For those who don't know, Ashlee, can you just give a little description about what the 7 Sisters program is for people who haven't heard of it?
So the 7 Sisters program, it was started by this woman named Michelle Peterson, and it's basically the idea that you gather a group of women that could be 7 or it could be more, or it could be less, but there's one person per day who stops in and helps out for a mom. And so that could be literally just taking the garbage to the curb, or it could be a variety of things like cooking or warming up food or just holding the baby so that the mom can take a shower. And it's the idea is that each woman is doing something that she is like loves to do. So if you hate doing dishes, then like, that's not something that we would put on the list of things that Tuesday mom would help out with, or Tuesday sister would help out with. But the idea is that there would be somebody checking in with the mom for 6 weeks or however long you set up the Seven Sisters program for. And yeah.
Yeah, it's such a beautiful model. Gathering community support around you.
Totally. It's really
cool. So you've worked with so many different moms, and you've definitely supported moms who have gone through a cesarean birth before. Now, having gone through it yourself, it is definitely, really enlightened you. And one thing I really love about you, Ashlee, is that you're so inquisitive and ready to like learn from every situation that you're in. How has going through this experience yourself changed what you understood about cesarean birth beforehand?
Yeah. So one of the bigger things I came away with is when a mom comes home from the hospital after having a cesarean, one of the biggest challenges is actually getting in and out of bed and or getting up and down from wherever the mom is sitting. And so what I realized is like with previous moms that I worked with that have had cesareans, that wasn't in my awareness at all. And if I were to work with a mom now that has had a cesarean, I would be like, anytime you want to get up, let me know and I'll come over and be the bed rail basically, so that you can pull yourself up using me as like a stable force. Because that was the most uncomfortable part for me about coming home from the hospital, actually. Like I kind of wish I had stayed in the hospital one more day just because it was so hard to get in and out of bed. And then I had so much swelling from all of the IV fluids that, we talk about how with a cesarean mom, you avoid doing massage until the incision is fully healed, which makes complete sense, especially with the ample amount of oils. But what Tana and I did is, starting on day 4, day 5, she started to just massage my legs to move some of the swelling, the edema, out of my legs. And so I would be sitting on the couch and she would basically sit underneath, like put my legs on top of her legs, and she would just rub, like do some lymphatic drainage to push some of that fluid up so it was moving, because that was also quite uncomfortable. And then also with my incision, I got what's called a seroma, which is above the incision where there's like basically trauma to the tissue. There's like a fluid filled area. And I know that I should have done my hot pack, like my hot water bottle, sooner, but I didn't. And so ultimately, starting on day like 7 or so, I started doing the hot water bottle pack on my incision, and some of the fluid drained out, which was awesome. But I think I would have been more, like with other moms, I feel like I'm more proactive about making sure that they use their hot water bottle, even if they haven't had a cesarean. But with a cesarean, I would ensure that starting sooner. And then what I've started to do now is I'm doing castor oil packs over my scar, my incision, to help soften it, because it's starting to get like a little bit hard under it. And then still applying the heat, and that's feeling really good. And I have like a little bit of fluid still left, I think, in this seroma, but not too crazy. So anyways, I didn't even know that was a thing before. And I don't know if I've had moms who have had seromas develop. Like, I don't remember them ever saying anything about it, but that's something that I would be very mindful of ensuring that they know about. And then the other thing is, I think we've all talked a little bit about the gas pains that can happen after cesareans. But what I found out is by applying heat, it can help. Like that's the only thing that can really help the gas pains. So sometimes the gas pains come up to the shoulders or up to the back. And so applying that heat with the hot water bottle or a heat pack or, hot rice pack or whatever would be the thing that I would recommend for the moms. Yeah, those are kind of the big things that I hadn't really thought about before, that became really apparent to me.
And
Yeah.
how, like, you talk, I know those first days are so crucial for, for all moms who have given birth, but particularly for moms who have gone through a cesarean birth. It's just structurally, they're so tender, and moving just little bits is very difficult. When did you start to feel your mobility really returning and being restored to you?
Yeah. So I think by day 10, by day 7, I was definitely starting to feel it. Like I just had more nerve pain than I had anything else with my incision site. And I had to still be really careful. I was actually quite surprised at how quickly my body healed, which was awesome. But it's probably, day 14 to 16, I've been like feeling like my energy is back and I'm like wanting to move around more. Yeah.
And you're starting to get a little bit of body work now. When did that start for you, and what types of positions on a massage table feel comfortable for you?
So Tana and I we ended up doing like some full body abhyangas that were modified and like shorter, starting on ended up being day 9 after he was born. And then I've had some craniosacral work and some just like kind of normal massage work. Generally, we've just done side lying on my back and on my side and sitting. So those are the 4 positions that we've done. And I still have not yet laid on my tummy, just because I don't know why. I'm scared.
I think you'll know when it's time, and it'll probably feel amazing, like when it is time. Yeah. And how, so nursing is generally like, that is a whole learning curve for mom and baby. But then when you're, starting to nurse as a mom who's had a cesarean birth, there are certain, positions that can feel less comfortable than otherwise. Can you talk about how your body's healing path has sort of affected the sort of nuts and bolts process of nursing?
Yeah. So also because I had so much fluids when my milk came in on day 4, I was super engorged and nothing was moving. And so I have a lactation consultant friend who came over and was helping me out. And I had a couple things that were really helpful. First of all, literally nothing except for the very tip of my nipples would come out. And so we ended up doing Epsom salt baths for each breast. And basically I had a bowl that I would set on the dining room table, and I would lean over it so that one boob was soaking in the bath. And then I would lean over it again the other side so that the other boob was soaking in the bath for about 10 minutes per side. And then I was doing 20 minutes of pumping to help move some of the milk. And not very much milk came out, but I was doing that. And then I was also doing like a reverse lymphatic massage to try to move some of the edema back into my lymphatic system so that the milk would have space to come out. And I was taking
about what that looks like what part of your breast area you were massaging? And
Yeah. So basically I was going in circles around my breast and going back into my armpit. So it was just like one big circle around the breast back into my armpit. And it was not like a hard, vigorous massage. It was more of like a lymphatic light touch massage. And the way my friend Katie described it is, it's my lactation consultant friend, she was like, it's the suggestion of the lymph going back into the lymphatic system. And I was like, okay, so it's like very gentle, very like light touches. And then I also did some like kind of more intense massage on the sides of my breasts, and a lot of stimulation to the breasts to try to help move some of the blocked ducts that were really full at that time.
Yeah, it can be so uncomfortable.
Yeah, I didn't realize how blocked or like how stagnant they could become.
Yeah.
And then I also, my Ayurvedic teacher, Jessica Valela, she also recommended having a little bit of vinegar because of the tikshna quality of the vinegar, in addition to like a little bit more spices to help move things. And so I was doing that in addition to kind of the more Western IBCLC methods to help move the milk out of the body.
That's great. So that is a nice segue into, the nutritional part of postpartum for you. Do you feel like you made special considerations in the types of foods you were wanting to eat because of your cesarean birth?
Yeah, so I definitely wanted to have more protein, and we started out with bone broth congee and with some chicken in it, just a little bit of chicken. And then we also kind of throughout my labor, actually, I was having gelatin. So I was having like homemade Jello basically. And then we started making gummies here at home. So there was a higher concentration of gelatin to help with postpartum surgical healing. And I stuck with like bone broth congee type soups for the first 5 days, and like oatmeal for breakfast. And then we started branching out from there to have like chicken soups, and we didn't do any like red meats until a little bit later, until I think day 10 or so. But that was still stews. So it wasn't like that much different from what a non-cesarean mom I feel like would be eating, but I was definitely having the craving for more like protein.
Right. Now, I know, in our conversations previously to this, we had talked a little bit about, when you were experiencing so much swelling and you were sort of looking at the qualities of foods and drinks that could maybe help you release some of that retained water. Can you talk a little bit about what you guys were doing?
Yeah, so Tana in her congees, her cooking was delicious, but in her congees she was adding more coriander and more, it wasn't cilantro, it was more coriander, because coriander has more of a diuretic effect to help pull and release some of that fluid that had built up in my body. And that was kind of the biggest, as far as spice goes, that we were focusing on during that time when my swelling was really high.
Awesome. And I suppose like you could switch to CCFT instead of the phenyl and fenugreek to kind of also encourage that diuretic quality.
Totally. Yeah. Or just plain coriander tea.
Yeah.
Too.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah.
So, we've talked about so many of the things that are on my question list. Yeah, I guess, just in sort of kind of bringing everything together, what do you feel like have been the key aspects for you in just this really beautiful healing process that you're experiencing right now. I think that in so many moms, it can be a different story, particularly moms who have gone through surgery. Um,
Mm-hmm.
you know, you've had incredible preparation, you've had really mindful awareness beforehand, but sort of in looking at an overview of everything, what do you think the most key points to your successful healing journey are?
Mm. Well, I think having support and community is probably the biggest one. In addition to following the basic, like, underlying principles of Ayurveda and Ayurvedic postpartum care. So having like warmth and stability around me, and then having like love ultimately, I think is probably the biggest piece. I I definitely think that having so much support, both physically, like to have all my meals prepared and help around the house and stuff, but also just like the incredible amount of love that I've gotten from my community and the people that have come over to visit and stuff has been so helpful and supportive. I also think that doing belly wrapping, I've just used elastic ones at this point in time, and I started with a really simple, basic belly wrap that I got from another friend who had a cesarean. I did that to start because it had a really even, consistent pressure that would be applied over my incision. And then I got more of like a kind of like a girdle type shaped one that has like 3 different straps and then 2 additional straps to kind of cinch the waistband area. And that I started using after about 2.5 weeks. Before that, I was just using the other elastic one. And then yeah, having warm meals and having the opportunity to have a warm shower every day too has been really helpful. So every morning my husband takes Cedar and I'll jump in the shower, and it's a really great way to start the day. So
It's sort of like those just small, tiny things that really create the best situation. Having love around you, being able to bathe in whatever form that takes, and having warm, nourishing food.
Mm-hmm. Totally. Yeah. It's amazing to be able to be on this side. Like I just feel like I'm learning so much, being able to be on the receiving end, and it's just really sweet.
Baby Cedar, he's been so good for us during our interview. Thank you, Cedar. Ashlee, it has been such a pleasure to talk to you about all of this. Thank you so much for giving us your time and your story. And I know that it's going to be helpful for so many people who are able to listen to it.
Thank you, Christine. I'm glad we're able to make it happen.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to stop the recording. Thanks again.
Okay.